Part 11. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan-Yun Yuchi. Chapter 101. Guanghe Washington Mansion, in the Shen family villa. Facing the scrutiny of Shen Zhenghao and his wife, Zhang Fengjie walked to the living room without feeling nervous at all, and then took a look at the items on the altar table and the offerings placed under the altar table. Then, he walked to the sofa opposite Shen Zhenghao and his wife, and sat on the sofa with a natural expression. "Young man, this is my home, Shen Zhenghao. As a guest, you neither introduced yourself proactively nor took a seat without my permission. Doesn't it seem a little rude and uncultured?" Zhang Fengjie's arrogant behavior of not treating him as an outsider made Shen Zhenghao feel very unhappy. At the same time, the tone of his questioning did not seem so polite. In response to this, Zhang Fengjie pointed at Shen Loxi and asked without caring at all. "I wonder what your relationship is with this beauty. Father-daughter relationship. How do you feel about each other? I could die for her. What if she's in danger of dying now? I will save her at all costs." Zhang Fengjie's repeated questions and his father's answers without hesitation made Shen Loxi deeply moved. At the same time, there was a look of doubt and confusion in his eyes. Because in her impression, her father was a polite, kind, and loving elder. He always treated the younger generation with kindness, and he had never treated him with such cold eyes as today. As for the Zhang Fengjie she knew, although he was full of arrogance, he was kind-hearted and respected his elders. Why was he so aggressive today? In that case, don't say that I sat down without permission. I'm afraid it won't matter even if this villa is demolished. After hearing Shen Zhenghao's reply without any hesitation or pause, Zhang Fengjie sat directly on the sofa with a slight expression on his face. He responded lazily. Bang! Shen Zhenghao slapped the coffee table hard, stood up suddenly and shouted. "Boy, stand up for me. Yezi, get up quickly and apologize." In the more than 3 years since she joined the Yongsheng group, she happened to have seen the gentle Shen Zhenghao get angry several times because of her sisterly relationship with Shen Loxi, and she also understood how terrifying Shen Zhenghao was when he was angry. Therefore, Sulitsi, who had been holding onto the sofa hard, could only walk to Zhang Fengjie and persuade him softly. Gently patting the sofa next to him, Zhang Fengjie motioned for Sulitsi to sit down. However, facing the angry Shen Zhenghao, Sulitsi, as a subordinate, did not dare to sit down. In response to this, Zhang Fengjie looked directly at Shen Zhenghao, who seemed to be angry, but actually wanted to give him a blow, without paying any attention, and threatened him calmly. "Chairman Shen, unless you can invite the real hidden masters in the Taoist sect, otherwise, you can only watch as Mr. Shen becomes more and more sleepy, and eventually turns into a cold corpse in his sleep." After the threat, Zhang Fengjie stood up directly, then held Sulitsi's jade hand and reminded him with an indifferent expression. "Sister Lizzie, let's go." "Oh, look at what happened." Just as Zhang Fengjie held Sulitsi's hand and walked away, Mother Shen, who had been silent until now, suddenly stood up and persuaded with a smile on her face. "Xiao Zhang. Your Uncle Shen and I only have a precious daughter, Luo 11, and we are very nervous about her safety and lifelong events, so I hope you won't take the misunderstanding just now to your heart." After stopping to leave, Zhang Fengjie glanced at Shen's mother with a half-smile, and finally turned to Shen Zhenghao and asked. "Chairman Shen, is it really just a misunderstanding?" In response, Shen Zhenghao, who felt a little guilty, could only pretend to be angry and sit back on the sofa, ignoring Zhang Fengjie's ridicule. Snort. Shen Zhenghao wanted to save face and refused to admit his mistake, which made Zhang Fengjie snort in displeasure. If it weren't for the 3 days of getting along day and night, his friendship with Shen Loxi was pretty good. He didn't want to see her eventually die due to the harm of evil magic. With Shen Zhenghao's self-righteous attitude just now, he had already turned away and left. Although Shen's mother's intervention gave him a reason and a step to stay, he would not let Shen Zhenghao go easily. Letting go of Sulizi's jade hand, Zhang Fengjai walked up to Shen Zhenghao, looked directly into his deliberately dodgy eyes and warned. Chairman Shen, I hope you can understand one thing, that is, this method of exerting power is not suitable for everyone. In today's complicated and chaotic world, there are too many people who you cannot afford to offend or hide from. Unfortunately, I, Zhang Fengjai, happen to be the kind of person you can't afford to offend or hide from. After Zhang Fengjai exposed the bloody reality of the world, Shen Zhenghao not only turned pale, but also lost all energy and fell down on the sofa. Zhang Fengjai, what on earth are you doing? Although she didn't quite understand the specific meaning of Zhang Fengjai's revelation just now, her father's instant state of aging by more than 10 years made Shen Loxi know how seriously what he just said had impacted and hurt her father, which made her endure. He kept yelling angrily. At the same time, Mother Shen's beautiful eyes also showed displeasure and dissatisfaction. Mr. Shen, maybe what I just said was harsh, but the starting point is for the good of your father, Chairman Shen. Ignoring Shen Loxi's rebuke, Zhang Fengjai briefly explained the reason for the warning, turned around and walked to the front of the altar, and then placed the pig head, carp, fruits and millet prepared by Su Shiqiang on the table in a tower shape. Then, he placed 2 incense burners on both sides of the pig head, lit 3 red candles in front of each incense burner, and placed 3 incense sticks in front of each red candle. Then, he reached out and grabbed the struggling rooster, scratched its wound with his fingers, and after a bowl of chicken blood flowed out, he began to draw talismans with the brush he had prepared in advance. Taking this opportunity, Shen Zhenghao also gradually calmed down from his panic through self-adjustment. Looking up at Zhang Fengjai who was working hard to draw talismans, Shen Zhenghao's eyes flashed with a complicated look, and then he turned his head and instructed Shen's mother. Go to my study, open the safe, and take the box on the top floor. Got it? Although she didn't know the specific items in the box, she knew that there must be precious and priceless treasures in it because Shen Zhenghao stayed in the study alone every 2 or 3 days to observe. Now she took it out on her own initiative, probably because she believed in the introduction of housekeeper Su. Although the appearance and clothes were ordinary, the boy with extraordinary temperament could solve her daughter's sleepiness problem. At the same time, she also wanted to use the treasure in the box to make real friends with each other. So, when Shen's mother nodded and stood up, she glanced at her daughter who was secretly complaining about Zhang Fengjai, and a hint of hesitation flashed in her eyes. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 102. Guanghe Huafu, in the Shen family villa. 9 soul-soothing talismans, 6 evil-breaking talismans, 3 trapping talismans, and 1 killing talisman. It took nearly 20 minutes, and Zhang Fengjai prepared a total of 19 talismans with different effects to deal with the soul-eating goo in Shen Loxi's mind. Putting down the Longhao brush in his hand, Zhang Fengjai looked a little tired. After all, drawing the talisman to kill the soul-eating goo requires all the energy and spirit to be concentrated, and the spiritual power in the dantian must be used. After taking a deep breath and calming the floating spiritual power in the dantian, he placed the 19 talisman papers around the altar, and then stepped back and sat cross-legged. Then, while he recovered the spiritual power and energy he had just consumed through meditation, he waited for the signal to take action. Looking at Zhang Fengjai sitting cross-legged on the ground, Shen Zhenghao, who was holding a wooden box in his hand, opened his mouth. But in the end, he still didn't have the courage to disturb Zhang Fengjai who was regulating his breath. No one knows a husband better than his wife. Seeing Shen Zhenghao's hesitation, Shen's mother immediately guessed her husband's difficulty and quickly winked at Shen Loxi and Sulizi. In the end, Sulizi, who had a closer relationship, walked to Zhang Fengjai and asked in a low voice. Yezi, is it convenient to talk now? Sister Litzi, is there something, Zhang Fengjai opened his eyes and looked at Sulitzi and asked. Yezi, Chairman Shen has something to tell you, you should pay more attention, Sulitzi reminded with a wink. Dr. Zhang, this is 100-year-old wild ginseng that I spent 5.8 million to buy at a private auction when I went to Hong Kong 2 years ago. Seeing Zhang Fengjai turned his head, Shen Zhenghao quickly stood up and opened the box to introduce. When Zhang Fengjai looked at the wooden box made of bauhinia wood, which contained a palm-sized ginseng, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. Faced with the cruel environment of lack of spiritual energy, if you want to quickly improve your own cultivation and break through the limitation of lifespan, you can only find some means to assist in cultivation. Some natural treasures with sufficient spiritual energy are the best targets. Ginseng. Especially wild ginseng of a certain age, the essence of spiritual energy contained in the body can not only accelerate the improvement of cultivation, but also be used to replenish blood and vitality, and enhance the hardness and strength of the body. After seeing a flash of joy in Zhang Fengjai's eyes, Shen Zhenghao secretly breathed a sigh of relief and quickly handed the box of ginseng to him. This is a 360-year-old wild ginseng from the deep mountains, from the cliff at the deepest part of Chenbai mountain. When he reached out to take out the ginseng from the box, the spiritual energy in his danchan boiled uncontrollably, making Zhang Fengjai immediately realize the extraordinary wild ginseng in his hand. Then, he quickly used the method of identifying medicinal materials taught by his great-grandfather to carefully observe the wild ginseng in his hand, and finally found out the specific year and origin of the ginseng. When he heard Zhang Fengjai say the specific year and accurate origin of the ginseng, Shen Zhenghao immediately showed an extremely shocked look. Because after spending a high price to buy this wild ginseng, he had specially looked for some old Chinese medicine practitioners who had been practicing medicine for decades, and used some top Western medical examination instruments. In the end, not only did they fail to check the specific year of the wild ginseng, but they also knew nothing about the real place of origin. Chairman, thank you. With this 360-year-old wild ginseng from the deep mountains, he not only has the ability to achieve a breakthrough in his own cultivation within 1 to 2 months, but also can help his iron-boned body enter the realm of minor success. At that time, with some means against demonic spirits and evil spirits, it will be enough to easily kill the 9-headed monster in the place of leaking yin, and even fight the stone lion on the stone bridge. So, after putting away the wild ginseng without being polite, Yu Heiran's face showed a simple smile again and thanked him. It's okay as long as Dr. Zhang likes it. Seeing Zhang Fengjai take the ginseng on his own initiative, Shen Zhenghao felt a little reluctant in his heart, but he was more happy and excited. After all, being able to truly get to know the Taoists who are difficult for even the top dignitaries to contact is of unimaginable help in improving the Shen family's status and influence in Ningji City and Dongshan Province, and in expanding the business and energy of Yongsheng Group. A mere wild ginseng worth only a few million is completely worth the effort. Dr. Zhang, I have a question. Do you know if I should ask it? Seeing that Zhang Fengjai was in a good mood, Shen Zhenghao summoned up the courage to ask carefully. Chairman, if you have any questions, just ask them. As the saying goes, if you take someone's hand, you will be short, and if you eat someone's food, you will be short. Since Zhang Fengjai accepted the 100-year-old wild ginseng given by the other party, he certainly couldn't be sarcastic. Dr. Zhang, I just heard from Butler Su that it seems that the disease that Loxi contracted is related to the father and son of the Zhu family of the Blue Sky Group. In fact, the deliberate attempt to intimidate Zhang Fengjai just now was not only to warn him not to pursue Shen Loxi like a toad wanting to eat swan meat, but also to slander the father and son of the Zhu family. The main business of the Blue Sky Group is nursery cultivation and municipal greening. A group that has won nearly 70% of the urban greening projects in Ningji City for several consecutive years and nearly half of the greening projects in 12 counties and cities. If it does not have a deep background in both black and white, I am afraid that even a fool would not believe it. The head of a group like this who has connections with the government is the person that real estate developers who also rely on government policy support are most afraid of, and the person they cannot offend. If Zhang Fengjai's slander against Zhu's father and son spreads out and is used by some people with ulterior motives, or directly angers Zhu's father and son, then it may cause a devastating blow to Yongsheng Group. After all, the narrow-minded character of Zhu's father and son and their vindictive style of behavior are known to everyone in the top dignitaries of Ningji City. That's right. While nodding to confirm, Zhang Fengjai glanced at Shen Loxi, who looked a little dazed, and said, "The cause of Mr. Shen's sleepiness is not only related to Zhu's father and son, but I suspect that it is very likely that Zhu Ziqiang took advantage of Mr. Shen's coming-of-age banquet and personally committed the murder." After hearing Zhang Fengjai's affirmative answer, Shen Zhenghao and his mother couldn't help but change their faces, and Shen Loxi also woke up from her trance and began to carefully recall the coming-of-age banquet 4 years ago. The time for recalling was not very long, only a dozen seconds. Shen Loxi, with a flash of enlightenment in her eyes, hurriedly instructed Su Shiqiang. "Uncle Su, please go to the basement and move the box on the west wooden shelf." "Yes, miss." After responding, Su Shiqiang quickly called a bodyguard and went straight to the specially built basement. When the strong bodyguard returned to the living room with a large box about half a meter high and 1 meter wide, Shen Loxi immediately jumped off the sofa to greet him. At the same time, Zhang Fengjai also finished his training and stood up and walked to the box. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 103. Guanghe Huafu, in the Shen family villa. Compared with Shen Loxi's use of memories to find the gift Zhu Ziqiang gave her, Zhang Fengjai relied on his own strong perception to directly find a delicate wooden box made of sandalwood. "Mr. Shen, is this the box?" When he reached out to take out the exquisite sandalwood box from the box, he felt a trace of evil breath left in the wooden box, and asked solemnly. "Yes, it's this box." After nodding and reaching out to take the box, Shen Loxi stood up and explained to Zhang Fengjai. "At that time, when the banquet was about to end, Zhu Ziqiang suddenly found me alone in private, and then gave me this box made of sandalwood, saying that there was a priceless jewel in the box. However, I had a bad feeling about the surname Zhu at that time. I always felt that this person was very bad, so I didn't open the box at that time and threw it directly to Butler Su. So that's what happened." After hearing Shen Loxi's explanation, a look of enlightenment flashed in Zhang Fengjai's eyes. At Zhang Yiting's home in Lala village, he couldn't be 100% sure whether Zhu Ziqiang was the murderer, and a big reason was that Shen Loxi fainted at the wrong time. Because according to the introduction of the soul-eating goo by the third grandfather, when the larvae of the soul-eating goo enter the host's brain, in order to successfully set up camp, they must immediately devour more than half of the host's spirit. Losing half of the spirit instantly will cause the host to faint on the spot. And the reason why Shen Loxi didn't faint at the banquet at that time must be because she didn't open the box where the soul-eating goo larvae were stored. The fainting on the second day must be that Zhu Ziqiang used the goo control technique to control the soul-eating goo to break out of the box, and then sneaked into her brain according to the breath left by Shen Loxi on the box. "Mr. Shen, if I'm not wrong, there are not only no priceless jewels in the box, but there must be a hole the size of a grain of rice at the bottom of the box. As for whether the previous guess is accurate or not, you only need to open the box to know," so Zhang Fengjai instructed Shen Loxi. Nodding, Shen Loxi slowly opened the box and found that the situation in the box was exactly the same as what Zhang Fengjai had just said. "Chairman, I can now confirm 100% that the disease that Mr. Shen contracted came from Zhu Ziqiang." Seeing the small hole at the bottom of the sandalwood box, Zhang Fengjai turned to Shen Zhenghao and said, "Dr. Zhang, why is this?" After hearing Zhang Fenjai's affirmative answer, Shen Zhenghao asked with doubts and confusion in his eyes. Not only do my Shen family and the Zhu family not have any grudges, but because of a lot of business dealings, the relationship between each other is pretty good. We even discussed Xie'er's marriage. Why did Zhu Ziqiang of the Zhu family want to harm Xie'er? In fact, Shen Zhenghao's doubts have also been bothering Zhang Fenjai. Because whether it is the blood-eating goo that devours blood and qi, or the soul-eating goo that devours spirit, they are all the treasures of the Jigumiao tribe, and they can successfully grow into top monsters. If he wanted to use people's spirit to cultivate the soul-devouring goo, Zhu Ziqiang could have chosen a rural woman like Jiang's mother, who was born in an ordinary family, just like his father. In this way, it can not only increase the safety of the soul-devouring goo during its growth, but also ensure that it will not attract too much attention after the host dies. So why did Zhu Ziqiang take the risk to choose Shen Loxi, who has a very unusual identity and status? Dr. Zhang, I wonder what means Zhu Ziqiang used to poison Loxi. Seeing that Zhang Fenjai didn't know why Zhu Ziqiang framed his daughter, Shen Zhenghao could only temporarily give up this unsolvable question and continue to ask the second question in his heart. A poisonous insect from southern Xinjiang, which is the goo you have seen in movies and TV dramas. When Shen Zhenghao asked about the murderer of the poison, Zhang Fenjai guessed that he would definitely ask about the means of poisoning. Although the existence of the soul-devouring goo involves the Jigumiao people and the evil Taoist practitioners in southern Xinjiang, it is not suitable for Sulitzi and Shen Loxi to know too much as ordinary people, but considering that when removing the soul-devouring goo from Shen Loxi's mind, it will inevitably attract their attention and questioning. Therefore, Zhang Fenjai could only choose to tell the truth. Xiao Zhang, is it the kind of love goo that can make a man fall in love with only one woman for his whole life? Facing Zhang Fenjai's answer, Shen Zhenghao hadn't said anything yet, and Jiang's mother suddenly asked with interest. At the same time, Sulitzi and Shen Loxi also showed expectations in their eyes. In response, Shen Zhenghao looked at Shen's mother helplessly, and sat back on the sofa with a depressed face, but Zhang Fenjai's next answer made him nervous. Love goo is just the most common poisonous insect among all the goo insects in southern Xinjiang, and it is also the most unskilled goo technique that even ordinary people can cultivate. Knowing the reason why Shen's mother was interested in love goo, and also to retaliate against Shen Zhenghao's just given power, Zhang Fenjai briefly introduced the love goo and suggested with a smile. And, if you are interested in cultivating love goo, I can help you buy a pair of love goo larvae. Really? Shen's mother asked immediately with surprise. Of course, Zhang Fenjai nodded very seriously. How much? Shen's mother continued to ask. Under normal circumstances, it would cost more than 300,000 yuan, but if I come forward, it would be at most 200,000 yuan, Zhang Fenjai answered confidently, holding up two fingers. The reason why Third Grandpa knows so much about the goo art of the Miao people is that he lived in southern Xinjiang for 6 years when he was training everywhere. During those 6 years, he met and made friends with many goo art masters of the Miao people, and they have been in close contact for so many years. If Third Grandpa comes forward to buy a pair of love goo from the goo art masters in southern Xinjiang, the price may be cheaper. After all, as he just said, among all the goo insects of the Miao people, the love goo is the easiest to cultivate and the most numerous. Yezi, buy me a pair of love goo. Just after Zhang Fenjai gave the purchase price, before Shen's mother had time to express her opinion, Sulitzi planned to buy a pair in advance. Sister Litzi, what are you buying love goo for? Zhang Fenjai turned his head and looked at Sulitzi, asking in confusion. Nothing, just keep it as a pet for fun. In fact, just when the purchase voice was just shouted, Sulitzi began to regret it. Because this showed that she didn't believe in the other party's loyalty to the relationship from the bottom of her heart, so when faced with Zhang Fenjai's questioning, she hurriedly made up an excuse in a panic. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 104. Guanghe Washington Mansion, in the Shen family villa. The slightly panicked look in Sulizi's eyes made Zhang Fengjai think for a moment and guess the reason for her impulsive purchase of Love Gu. This made him feel a little helpless and at the same time a little moved in his heart. He walked to her, then held her jade hand and said, "Sister Li Zi, I, Zhang Fengjai, want money but not money, I want looks but not looks, and I want knowledge but not knowledge. I can be called a brand new person with 3 no's. Now, to be favored by a rich and beautiful woman like you, I don't know how many generations of virtue I have accumulated. No matter now or in the future, I can never love you enough. How can I be half-hearted?" Sien Tang Building's confession is implicit and requires careful consideration. Today's confessions are direct and disgusting, and go straight to the soul without any consideration. This made Sulizi feel very sweet in her heart, and at the same time she couldn't help but lower her head with a blush on her face. "Xiaozhang, since Minister Su has a loyal lover like you, he doesn't need to buy Love Gu, but you're old and lustful and needs it. I show up for 100,000. Zhang Fengjai's direct and bold confession made Shen's mother feel very envious, and at the same time, she became more determined to purchase the Love Gu. "Okay, are you done yet?" However, before she could finish her words about purchasing Love Gu, she was rudely interrupted by Shen Chenggao. "Shen Chenggao, if you don't have any evil intentions in your heart, why don't you dare to let me buy a love charm that can guarantee love and loyalty?" Shen Chengao's rude refusal further confirmed Shen's mother's inner suspicion, and she immediately asked excitedly, "Lu Shuhua, although that is a love charm that can prove love, it is also a living insect. Can you bear to let the man you love swallow a living insect?" Faced with Shen's mother's fierce questioning, Shen Chenggao, who was completely driven crazy, also fought back not to be outdone. "Shen Chenggao, in order to love each other for a lifetime, can't you sacrifice yourself and eat a bug?" "Lu Shuhua, that's not eating it directly, but swallowing it alive, and it will always live in my body in the future. Zhang Fengjai, this is all a good thing you did." Ever since she was sensible, Shen Loxi had never seen her parents quarreling so fiercely. This made her very surprised, and at the same time she had to blame Zhang Fengjai. After all, without his enthusiastic promotion of love charm just now, it would not have caused his parents to quarrel about love. Of course, complaints are complaints, and Shen Loxi was not angry with Zhang Fengjai. Because through her parents' fierce quarrel, she finally discovered that 2 people who usually respect each other like guests still love each other deeply in their hearts. However, due to status and work reasons, both of them deliberately restrained their feelings, which caused excessive suspicion on the part of their mother. Perhaps after this quarrel, the relationship between the 2 people can warm up again. In fact, the active promotion of Love Gu was just to retaliate against Shen Chenggao for intimidating him. He did not expect that Shen Chenggao and Shen's mother would quarrel over the Love Gu. Although he is not good at breaking up fights, he has his own methods on how to calm down 2 people in an argument. Chairman, as the least lethal love voodoo among the voodoo arts, it is very simple to deal with. You only need one such spell to easily kill the love voodoo. Pointing at the soul-killing talisman he just drew, Zhang Maple Leaf gave Shen Chenggao a slight wink and reminded him. It took nearly 20 minutes to draw 19 charms, which means it only takes 1 minute to make a charm that can kill love poison. Since Zhang Fengjai is a bodyguard who gets paid from the group, then why not find him to buy a few charms for killing love spells? Therefore, Shen Chenggao, who suddenly felt extremely relaxed, sat back on the sofa and said quite grandly, "Since you want to buy Love Gu, and our family is not short of money, we might as well buy 10 or 8 of them in one go and keep them for fun. What's the use of buying useless things?" After glaring at Zhang Fengjai fiercely, Mother Shen said angrily, "I won't buy it." Facing Mother Shen's glare, Zhang Fengjai pretended to have an innocent expression and spread his hands. "Yi, thank you," Sulizi said movedly, holding Zhang Fengjai's hand tightly. The spell you made can easily kill the love poison. Then, when faced with his request to purchase the love goo, he could safely allow himself to purchase it, since it would be of no use to him in the end anyway. But Zhang Fengjai didn't do this. Instead, he used the most direct way to express his loyalty to prove his loyalty. How could this not make Sulitsi deeply moved? In response, Zhang Fengjai patted her jade hand gently, then turned to look at the time on the quartz clock, and found that the time had reached 5:35, and it was less than half an hour before the third grandfather took action to remove the soul-eating goo. Time. Therefore, he quickly put away some random thoughts in his mind and continued to explain to Shen Zhenghao with a solemn expression. Chairman, when I was in Lala village, I used special pulse-taking methods to carefully examine the situation within the Shen group, and found that the method Zhu Ziqiang used to frame her was a kind of voodoo technique from southern Xinjiang, a kind of poison that can the soul-eating goo that continuously devours Mr. Shen's energy and spirit, and eventually directly eats the brain marrow and brain matter. Bang! After hearing that Zhu Ziqiang used such cruel methods to poison his daughter, Shen Zhenghao was so angry that he slammed the coffee table next to the sofa and cursed through gritted teeth. Damn Zhu Ziqiang, damn Zhu Qingjin! Mother Shen's face turned pale as paper and she fell directly on the sofa, with panic and sadness in her eyes. Zhang Fengjai, can you save me? Will you try your best to save me? Shen Loxi clenched her fists, although she was also extremely frightened in her heart, but after experiencing several strange things with Zhang Fengjai, she quickly calmed down the negative effects of panic. After her eyes swept over the altar in the living room, as well as the offerings and talisman paper on the altar, she gradually calmed down and walked to Yu Heiran, asking with a hint of expectation in her eyes. Of course. Nodding without hesitation, Zhang Fengjai pointed at the offerings and talisman paper on the altar and said, "If I wasn't sure I could remove the soul-devouring goo from your mind, I wouldn't have asked Butler Su to take care of these things. If I didn't try my best to save you, I wouldn't have told you about the soul-devouring goo that can devour your spirit, and I wouldn't have wasted my energy drawing these spells. Thank you, Yezi." After hearing Yu Heiran's explanation and attitude, Shen Loxi's expectation was replaced by tenderness. Then, she suddenly stretched out her arms to hug Zhang Fengjai, and called him intimately by Sulitsi's special name. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 105. Guanghe Huafu, in the Shen family villa. After seeing his daughter's bold hug of Zhang Fengjai, Shen Zhenghao's eyes flashed with joy. Shen's mother just frowned slightly, but did not say anything to stop her. Sulitsi's eyes showed displeasure and nervousness. Displeasure, because Shen Loxi knew that she and Zhang Fengjai had already confirmed their relationship as lovers, and she still hugged her boyfriend so blatantly, which was a naked provocation. Nervous, because Shen Loxi had advantages over her in terms of appearance and figure, knowledge and family background. She was worried that Zhang Fengjai, who had a simple personality, might eventually succumb to the other party's active pursuit, and her second love would end in vain. "No need to thank me, this is what I should do." After gently breaking away from Shen Loxi's hug, Zhang Fengjai took a step back and gestured. Then, he walked to a position 1.5 meters away from the altar, stretched out his feet to draw a circle, and instructed Shen Loxi. "Mr. Shen, you will sit cross-legged here for a while, and I will take care of the rest." I know, without paying attention to Zhang Fengjai's initiative to break free from the hug, Shen Loxi carefully looked at the position he had just marked and nodded in response. After turning his head to look at the quartz clock on the east side of the living room, he took out a piece of talisman paper from his sleeve, a talisman drawn with chicken blood at Zhang Yiting's house, and placed it on the altar. Then, he retreated to Sulitsi's side, holding her jade hand while waiting for the signal from the third grandfather. The moment Zhang Fengjai held her jade hand, the displeasure and vigilance in Sulitsi's eyes disappeared instantly, and she glanced at Shen Loxi with a hint of pride. In response, Shenloxi smiled without caring at all, then retreated to Shen's mother's side, looking at Zhang Fengjai with infinite tenderness in her eyes. Bang! Just when the quartz clock reached 6 o'clock, the talisman paper Zhang Fengjai placed on the altar suddenly burned automatically, which also scared everyone at the scene. "Boss Shen, get in position immediately." Quickly letting go of Sulitsi's jade hand, Zhang Fengjai instructed Shenloxi while dodging to the altar. Bang! He slapped the altar hard, and the 36 gold coins on the altar were immediately bounced into the air. The 3 pure ones show their magical powers, and the gold coins seal the sword to kill the evil spirits. At the moment when the 36 gold coins were bounced, Zhang Fengjai immediately formed a seal with his hands and chanted the formula. As the condensed mark of nothingness merged into the gold coins, the 36 gold coins quickly formed a gold coin sword about 7 inches long when they landed. Reaching out to hold the fallen gold coin sword, Yu Heiran directly picked up the 3 trapped talismans on the altar, and while using his spiritual power to drive the talisman paper to burn, he turned around and slapped it on Shenloxi's left and right shoulders and the hair on her forehead. Although the burning talisman paper was emitting blazing flames, the hair and clothes that were slapped were not only not ignited, but also had no trace of burning. After the 3 talismans were completely burned, Zhang Fengjai immediately turned around and picked up 6 evil-breaking talismans. At the moment when he used his spiritual power to drive the talisman paper to burn, he reminded Shenloxi. "Mr. Shen, the spirit contained in the evil-breaking talisman will alarm the soul-eating insect in your sea of consciousness. When it forcibly leaves the brain, it will cause severe pain. I hope you can endure the pain and don't leave the place." "Got it," Shenloxi nodded in response with her fist clenched. At the moment when Shenloxi replied, the 6 talismans picked up by the money sword directly hit her forehead. Fortunately, the action of slapping Shenloxi when the 3 talismans were burning made Shen Zhenghao and Shen's mother know that the flames of the burning talisman paper would not hurt their daughter. Therefore, when they saw the money sword against Shenloxi's forehead and the talisman paper flames burning on the tip of the money sword, they did not feel nervous and afraid to stop it. Destroy the evil and gather the yin, lure the snake out of the hole. When Zhang Fengjai felt the aura on Shenloxi suddenly become cold and evil, he shouted loudly and began to pull out the tightly grasped golden money sword bit by bit. Just when the golden money sword just left Shenloxi's forehead, the pain caused by the soul-devouring goo desperately leaving the brain made her body tremble violently, and her tightly bitten lips were bleeding because of the rupture. Not paying attention to Shenloxi's pain, Zhang Fengjai continued to slowly pull out the golden money sword with a solemn expression. Ah! When the tip of the golden money sword was more than 5 centimeters away from Shenloxi's forehead, a gap suddenly appeared at the center of her eyebrows. The pain caused by the soul-devouring goo forcibly tore the center of her eyebrows made Shenloxi's face suddenly scream hideously, and she could no longer maintain the posture of sitting cross-legged with bent knees. Fortunately, she still remembered Zhang Fengjai's instructions and fell to the ground hugging her knees and trying not to move. This also made Shen Zhenghao and Shen's mother, Sulitsi, Wang Denmei, and Su Shiqiang subconsciously want to go forward to help her. "Everyone, step back." But at this moment, Zhang Fengjai shouted to stop him, and the speed of the golden money sword's withdrawal suddenly increased. At the same time, a small insect the size of a grain of rice, with 2 meat lumps slightly protruding on its back and an extremely hideous appearance, quickly crawled out of the wound torn between Shenloxi's eyebrows. When seeing the hideous insect crawling out of the wound between Shenloxi's eyebrows, Shen's mother, Sulitsi, and Wang Denmei couldn't help but shed tears of heartache, while Shen Zhenghao and Su Shiqiang showed strong murderous intent in their eyes. Just when the soul-devouring goo had just detached from the wound between his eyebrows, Zhang Fengjai's free left hand suddenly sucked the soul-calming talisman and the small and exquisite silver lock on the altar, and 9 soul-calming talismans and silver locks floated up directly. Then, the golden money sword in his hand directly penetrated the 9 paper talismans, and the tip of the sword was tightly attached to the silver lock. Then, he turned around and swung the golden money sword hard, shouting, "9 souls lock the universe!" Accompanied by a strong shout, the silver lock that first detached from the tip of the sword was directly attached to the wound between Shen Loxi's eyebrows, and 9 burning soul talismans surrounded the soul-devouring goo. Who dares to hurt my baby? Just when the 9 soul-calming talismans and the silver lock cut off the connection between the soul-devouring goo and Shen Loxi, the soul-devouring goo floating in the air suddenly shouted in human language, "Master, it's Zhu Ziqiang's voice." When Su Shiqiang heard the voice of the soul-devouring goo shouting, he immediately reminded Shen Zhenghao excitedly. "I know." Shen Zhenghao gritted his teeth and said, "I don't care if you are a Taoist sorcerer or an evil cultivator like me, immediately remove the means of prohibiting my treasure and let it return to the host body safely. Otherwise, don't blame me for pulling out your tendons and peeling off your skin." After hearing Zhu Ziqiang's threat, Zhang Fengjai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 106. Guanghe Washington Mansion, in the Shen family villa. As the treasures of the Jigumiao tribe, the blood-eating goo and the soul-eating goo both have the potential to advance into monster beasts, so they already have a certain amount of intelligence when they are still young. If the master who cultivates the soul-eating goo has high enough cultivation, strong enough strength, and strong enough willpower, he can completely control the eyes of the soul-eating goo to see the scene in front of him. Able to experience the soul-eating goo's own feelings and clearly understand the situation in front of him. Since Zhu Ziqiang was unable to understand the specific situation at the scene through the eyes and feelings of the soul-eating goo, it meant that his cultivation and strength were weaker than initially expected. Therefore, Zhang Fengjai, who was already fully confident in his heart, did not delay any further. Holding the money sword tightly, he picked up the killing talisman on the altar table, and then used spiritual power to drive the talisman paper to burn automatically while stabbing directly at the soul-eating goo trapped by the soul-suppressing talisman. However, just when the burning flames of the killing talisman were about to burn the soul-eating goo's body, the soul-eating goo, which was only as big as a grain of rice, suddenly made an unusually harsh sound. Along with the unusually harsh sound, Zhang Fengjai felt his spirit gradually drifting into a trance, and the soul-eating goo and Shen Loxi appeared twice in his eyes. Solitsi and others squatted on the ground with their ears covered, with painful and ferocious expressions on their faces. The harvest is plentiful to welcome the prosperous age, and the Jade Emperor descends into the mortal world. Taking a deep breath, resisting the impact of the soul-eating goo's screams on his soul, Zhang Fengjai turned around and faced the altar table. The money sword in his hand quickly picked up all the offerings, and then the 10 fingers that withdrew the sword quickly condensed the seals, and in his mouth chant the mantra softly. Along with making seals and chanting mantras, several fresh offerings that were picked up in the air lost their bright colors in an instant and fell back onto the offering table. But the lost bright colors quickly condensed into a pair of eyes that only Zhang Fengjai could see. The Jade Emperor has descended into the mortal world and ushered in a prosperous age with abundant harvests. While reciting the incantation, Zhang Fengjai immediately stepped back 1 meter to the right, revealing the soul-eating goo trapped by the soul-suppressing talisman. The eyes that were originally closed slowly opened, and a sharp gaze directly strangled the soul-eating goo. Then, after slowly closing his eyes, he instantly disappeared above the altar table. Without the screams of the soul-eating goo, Solitsi and others gradually recovered. However, except for Shen Loxi, who was not specifically targeted by the soul-eating goo, everyone else's eyes, noses and mouths had blood flowing out of them. It is also commonly known as bleeding from the 7 orifices. The silver needle that quickly appeared in his hand pricked Solitsi and others several times, and then said hello to the little black dog that had been crawling behind the altar table. "Xiao He, let's go." Yezi, what are you doing? Seeing Zhang Fengjai leading the little black dog about to rush out of the living room, Sulitsi, who had no time to wipe off the blood on her face, asked quickly. Kill the culprit to avoid future troubles. After Zhang Fengjai responded briefly, he quickly rushed out of the villa with the little black dog. Uncle Su, immediately call all the bodyguards to bring the real guys to help Dr. Zhang kill Zhu Ziqiang. Kill the culprit to avoid future troubles. After hearing Zhang Fengjai's response, a look of gratitude flashed in Shen Chengao's eyes. Then, after his grateful expression was replaced by murderous intent, he turned to Su Shiqiang and gave instructions. Yes, sir. After nodding in response, Su Shiqiang quickly ran out of the living room, then rushed to the basement where the bodyguards rested, and moved a wooden box out of the secret door. After opening the wooden box, there were 10 brand new May 4th pistols placed in the box. Take the real thing and follow me to kill people. Su Shiqiang took out a pistol first, loaded it, and ordered the 6 bodyguards with murderous intent. Sister Lizzie, please help me go upstairs and have a rest. Shen Loxi, who struggled to sit up, looked at Zhang Fengjai who disappeared into the living room, with tenderness like water in his eyes. And when she heard that her father had risked his life to help Zhang Fengjai, the tenderness in her eyes was instantly replaced by determination. Then, she raised her head and greeted Sulitsi, whose face was full of worry. Sister Luo 11, let me do it. After hearing Shen Loxi's greeting, Wang Denmei, who was the first to recover, ran over quickly, but Shen Loxi shook her head and refused. No, I have something to say to your sister Lizzie. Let's go. Before he solved the soul-eating goo, he dared to hug Zhang Fengjai in front of him. Now, with the friendship of saving her life, Sulitsi knew that what Shen Loxi wanted to say to her was related to Zhang Fengjai without having to think too much. Although she felt very uncomfortable about this, she did not refuse outright. Because she also needed to express her feelings for Zhang Fengjai to Shen Loxi face to face, and at the same time ask her not to do anything that would involve a third party. Shengao, is this appropriate? After Sulitsi and Shen Loxi went upstairs, Mother Shen waved her hand to Wang Denmei to rest first, with a worried look on her face. A strong man who can absolutely protect Luo 11's safety, a noble man who can make the Shen family prosperous, and a good boy with a kind nature, do you think he is suitable? Turning to look at Shen's mother, Shen Shengao asked with a hint of displeasure. Road. Shengao, don't be angry yet, listen to me carefully. She could feel the anger in Shen Shengao's questioning tone. After Shen's mother quickly gave a word of relief, her eyes were still filled with worry as she reminded. Xiaozhang is indeed very good and will be of great help to our Shen family, but have you ever thought that it is precisely because of his excellent conditions and abilities that he will definitely meet more excellent girls in the future? What if a girl who is prettier, gentler, and has a nobler and more prominent family than Xiao takes the initiative to pursue Xiaozhang in the future? Xiao will be hurt. When Shen Shengao heard the reason why Shen's mother was worried, he immediately knew that he had misunderstood his wife. He reached out and held Shen's mother's jade hand, and said with confidence on his face. Shahen, as long as Xiao can take down Dr. Zhang, I believe that with our daughter's shrewdness and skills, she will never give other women the opportunity to succeed. Although he said that he believed in Shen Loxi and Zhang Fengjai, Shen Shengao actually thought differently. Because he followed Confucianism, he still retained the cancer of feudalism in his bones, and always longed for and pursued a life with 3 wives and 4 concubines. Although the laws of the country explicitly prohibit such things that violate secular morality and destroy family happiness, for the top rich and powerful, they have already achieved the happy life they have always pursued. Among them, Shen Shengao himself is included. Therefore, in Shen Shengao's view, as long as his daughter can marry into the Zhang family as a formal marriage and obtain the status of the principal wife, he doesn't need to care how many women Zhang Fengjai will have in the future. Although this is very unfair to his daughter, living in this inherently unfair society, you can only try your best to accept and adapt. Otherwise, the internet would not have summarized a wise saying that everyone agrees with. Life is like a strong attack. If you can't resist, then you might as well close your eyes and enjoy it. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 107. Guanghe Huafu. After rushing out of the Shen family's villa quickly, Zhang Fengjai led the little black dog to the place where the trap was set yesterday. Then, he signaled the little black dog to hide in the flowers next to him temporarily, and then quietly waited for Zhu Ziqiang to arrive. The waiting time was not very long, about 3 minutes, and a breath full of evil and feminine breath came quickly at the speed of the wind. Who? After carefully feeling it for a while, he found that there was not only one evil breath rushing quickly, but also the strength was also very ordinary. Zhang Fengjai knew that his plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain was successful, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then, he took out a talisman drawn with the blood of the demon beast King's snake from his sleeve. The 3 pure ones show their divine power, and the divine beasts defeat the demons. Just when the evil breath turned and planned to go straight to the Shen family villa, Zhang Fengjai immediately used his spiritual power to drive the talisman in his hand. The self-igniting talisman quickly transformed into a king's snake with a body length of only more than 7 inches, emitting dark green all over. Then, under the control of Zhang Fengjai's mind, the green bamboo snake fell directly to the ground, and then swung its tail to quickly approach Zhu Ziqiang. Because he wanted to kill the murderer who dared to hurt the soul-eating insect, Zhu Ziqiang didn't pay attention to the situation around him, and didn't feel the spiritual power fluctuations and light shouts of Zhang Fengjai's talisman in advance. When he was less than 200 meters away from the Shen family's villa and was about to stop to catch his breath, the green bamboo snake that quickly rushed behind him jumped high and bit his neck directly. Whether it is an orthodox Taoist monk or a sorcerer who practices evil magic, the ability to sense danger is far greater than that of ordinary people. At the moment when the green bamboo snake just jumped up, the fatal danger and the fluctuation of spiritual power made Zhu Ziqiang turn around and retreat immediately, and a gloomy human skull immediately appeared in his hand. Then, a thick black gas was spit out from the mouth of the human skull, directly enveloping the green bamboo snake. Woo! However, just when the black gas just enveloped the green bamboo snake, a dull tiger roar sounded from behind him. Accompanied by the dull roar, a blue tiger with a height of more than 2 meters and a body length of 4 meters directly pounced on Zhu Ziqiang's back. Damn it! After cursing secretly, Zhu Ziqiang quickly retracted the black gas that trapped the green bamboo snake, and then rolled over to avoid the blue tiger. But at this moment, a sudden pain and numbness came from his ankle, and Zhu Ziqiang, who had just stood up, almost fell again. Thousand-legged blood centipede. After quickly mobilizing his spiritual power to seal his painful and numb right foot, Zhu Ziqiang looked down. Then, his face suddenly changed, and his free left hand immediately slapped his skull. Immediately afterwards, 2 flying insects similar to horse peaks, but slightly larger in size, flew out of the eye sockets of the skull. Then, the 2 flying insects pounced on the green bamboo snake and the blue tiger respectively. Tiger-headed man-eating bee. When Zhang Fengjai, who was hiding in the dark, saw 2 insects flying out of the eye sockets of the skull, he shouted the origin of the insects in surprise and immediately gave an order to the little black dog. After receiving Zhang Fengjai's order, the little black dog hiding in the flowers immediately rushed to the battlefield quickly, and pounced directly on the tiger-headed man-eating bee that rushed towards the green bamboo snake. Facing the green bamboo snake and the blue tiger transformed by the demon blood and the spell, the tiger-headed man-eating bee, which was not afraid at all, seemed to have encountered a natural enemy when facing the ordinary little black dog. It trembled all over and stopped in place without moving, and was finally swallowed directly by the little black dog. Afterwards, the little black dog turned around and ran straight to another tiger-headed man-eating bee. Damn it! The thousand-legged blood centipede nourished by the moonlight, after the toxicity in its body has undergone a slight transformation, it can directly corrode the spiritual power of the cultivator. Therefore, Zhu Ziqiang, who mobilized all his spiritual power to fight against the poison, could not deal with the little black dog that restrained the tiger-headed man-eating bee. When he saw the green bamboo snake and the blue tiger, who had lost the threat of the tiger-headed man-eating bee, rushing towards him again, Zhu Ziqiang cursed inwardly, and immediately bit his tongue and spit out a mouthful of blood at the skull. When the blood was spit out, Zhu Ziqiang's face turned pale as paper, and his aura fell to that of an ordinary person. When the blood splashed on the skull quickly merged into the bones, the skull soared into the air, and two green flames appeared in the eyes. At this time, Su Shiqiang and the 6 bodyguards who came with real weapons saw the blue tiger and the green bamboo snake in front of them, saw the skull floating in the air, and saw the ghost fire in the skull's eye sockets. 2 of the bodyguards with average psychological quality fainted directly. Although the remaining 4 bodyguards were not frightened to death, their shaking legs also meant that they had basically lost their fighting power. Fortunately, Su Shiqiang, who had experienced 2 strange events, barely suppressed his inner fear and raised his pistol. When he was about to shoot Zhu Ziqiang, who was resisting the poison, the skull floating in the air suddenly blocked Zhu Ziqiang. Then, an invisible force wave rushed directly to Su Shiqiang, who was about to pull the trigger. "Butler Su, stop!" Zhang Fengjai, with his spiritual power and Xingfeng step, rushed to Su Shiqiang quickly, snatched the pistol from his hand, and immediately rolled to the side with him. Then, the 2 bodyguards who were swept by the invisible force screamed with endless fear in their eyes, and then fell to the ground and died with blood flowing from all 7 orifices. Looking at the 2 bodyguards who were frightened to death, Su Shiqiang's face turned pale as paper, and he hurriedly thanked Zhang Fengjai. "Dr. Zhang, thank you for saving my life. Butler Su, the fight between me and Zhu Ziqiang is not something you can interfere with. Take them away quickly." After waving his hand to signal Su Shiqiang that he didn't need to be polite, Zhang Fengjai threw the pistol to him, and after a quick instruction, he turned and rushed to the skull that was ready to deal with the little black dog. Seeing the appearance of the mastermind behind the scenes, Zhu Ziqiang, who barely suppressed the poison, immediately used his mind to control the skull to turn the target of the attack, and the eye sockets burning with ghost fire were directly aimed at Zhang Fengjai. There is no sword in the world, the golden sword destroys the soul. When he saw the 2 ghost fires in the skull's eye sockets aimed at him, Zhang Fengjai threw out 36 gold coins while sprinting. Then, he pinched his hands and chanted a spell. Then, the 2 gold coins that quickly gathered together pierced directly into the skull's eye sockets at lightning speed. Ah! Just when the 2 ghost fires in the skull's eye sockets were pierced by the 2 gold swords, Zhu Ziqiang screamed in pain and fell to the ground, losing his life. When the skull, which had lost control, flew into the air and tried to escape, Zhang Fengjai immediately used his mind to control the 2 gold swords in the eye sockets and forcibly suppress the skull. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 108. Guanghe Huafu. After dispersing the 2 short swords made of 36 gold coins, Zhang Fengjai carefully observed the skull that was no longer struggling to escape, and a look of doubt appeared in his eyes. Judging from the eye sockets, jawbone, brow arch, and hardness of the skull, this skull without flesh and blood came from an ordinary woman who was about 20 years old and had been dead for more than 5 years. However, how could the skull of an ordinary woman be refined into a container that could hold evil spirits and poisonous insects? In the case of being unable to figure it out, Zhang Fengjai could only temporarily give up this act of wasting brain cells, and planned to let the experienced third grandpa take a look when he returned to the Taoist temple in Shushan in the future. Then, he walked to Zhu Ziqiang with the skull in his hand, and then searched him carefully, and finally found only a wallet, a fruit mobile phone and a delicate small porcelain bottle. In addition to 5,000 yuan in cash, there were more than a dozen credit cards and bank cards in the wallet. In the porcelain bottle, there was a small pile of medicine powder that could easily confuse the will and quickly stimulate the primitive instinct. In addition to leaving 5,000 yuan in cash and a porcelain bottle, he put the wallet with the credit card and bank card back into the other party's pocket, and crushed the iPhone and scattered it on the other party. Then, he stepped back a few steps, took out a fire-burning talisman from his sleeve, and then used his spiritual power to drive the talisman to self-ignite, and threw it directly on Zhu Ziqiang. Alas! Looking at Zhu Ziqiang, whose flesh and bones disappeared bit by bit under the burning of the fire-burning talisman, Zhang Fengjai couldn't help but sigh. When he entered the Taoist sect at the age of 3, when he understood the ways of the world at the age of 7, when he made a marriage contract at the age of 14, and when he became an adult at the age of 18, his 3 grandfathers repeatedly asked him a question. The life of a mortal is precious, and the life of a cultivator is cheap. When you enter the Taoist sect, half of your foot has already stepped into the gate of hell. Do you regret practicing Taoism? Are you afraid of practicing Taoism? Are you hesitant about practicing Taoism? And are you afraid of practicing Taoism? Although the content of his 4 answers was different, his belief in practicing Taoism has never changed. Therefore, Zhu Ziqiang's death not only made him see the cruelty of cultivation, but also strengthened his determination to improve his cultivation and strength. After Zhu Ziqiang's body completely turned into a pile of white powder, Zhang Fengjai began to clean up and remove all traces left by the fight just now, to prevent fellow practitioners who accidentally passed by the villa area from discovering any remaining clues. Xiao He, let's go. After removing all the remaining traces, Zhang Fengjai called Xiao Hegu and turned to run straight to the Shen family's villa. Rat Mountain, at the foot of the mountain. A middle-aged man who looked 70% similar to Zhu Ziqiang looked at an old man in front of him in horror, wearing a grey Taoist robe, with his hands behind his back and an indifferent expression. Suicide, the grey-robed old man gave a cold look at the middle-aged man without any emotion. Senior, can you spare me a chance to live for the sake of my master, the 3-winged Bone King? The middle-aged man immediately knelt on the ground and begged bitterly when the grey-robed old man ordered him to commit suicide. Humph! When the middle-aged man mentioned the 3-winged Bone King, the grey-robed old man couldn't help but sneered and said in a domineering tone. Even if it was the 3-winged Bone King's master, the 6-winged Bone King, I told him to go east, but he didn't dare to go west. I told him to be a dog, but he didn't dare to be a chicken. So, if you want to keep the opportunity to reincarnate, if you want to become a ghost cultivator who lives forever, just commit suicide quickly. Senior, can't you really be merciful and spare me a chance to live? The middle-aged man, with a sinister look in his eyes, lowered his head and continued to beg, while quietly taking out a small cloth bag from his sleeve. I don't want to say the same thing for the 3rd time, the grey-robed old man shouted with a slightly unhappy look. If that's the case, then you old man, go to hell. Just as the grey-robed old man's threatening voice fell, the middle-aged man jumped up in anger and opened the cloth bag in his hand. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Accompanied by a harsh buzzing sound, hundreds of rice-sized flying insects quickly flapped their wings and rushed out of the cloth bag, and then rushed towards the grey-robed old man like a gust of wind. Looking at the hundreds of flying insects rushing over quickly, the grey-robed old man neither dodged nor attacked, but just looked up indifferently. With just a simple glance, hundreds of flying insects fell from the air, trembling all over as if struck by lightning. With just a glance, he easily slaughtered the poisonous insects that he had cultivated for more than 10 years with great difficulty. While the middle-aged man was filled with endless fear in his heart, he finally realized that the grey-robed old man had not lied at all. Even the 6-winged Bone King, the master of evil magic, might not be the opponent of the grey-robed old man in front of him. Therefore, the middle-aged man completely gave up the idea of resistance and sneak attack, and turned to flee to the cornfield hundreds of meters away. He believed that as long as he could successfully escape into the cornfield, and then with the help of the complex environment of the cornfield, he could easily get rid of the pursuit of the gray-robed old man. But at the moment when he was about to rush into the cornfield, a terrifying force quickly swept over from behind, completely crushing his body and directly obliterating his fragile soul. Alas! Looking at the middle-aged man who was completely destroyed into dust, the gray-robed old man sighed lightly, waved his sleeves to collect hundreds of unconscious flying insects, and then turned back to the Taoist temple on the top of the mountain. Guanghe Huafu. After hiding the skull in the bushes outside the Shen family villa, Zhang Fengjai tidied his clothes a little, then walked into the living room of the villa with a simple smile on his face. Then, a tempting fragrance came towards him, and Sulitsi's concerned voice rang in his ears. "Yezi, are you okay?" "Sister Litsi, I'm fine," Zhang Fengjai said with a slightly red face, holding the jade hand that kept groping his body tightly. Because Sulitsi's groping just now in a hurry almost touched the Longyang land, and almost caused his instinctive reaction. "Yezi, you are not injured," although not as anxious as Sulitsi, Shen Loxi, who was also very worried, ran to him and asked with worry in his eyes. "Don't worry, Mr. Shen, I'm fine." After responding to Shen Loxi with a smile, Zhang Fengjai held Sulitsi's jade hand and came to the living room, and found that the 4 bodyguards brought back by Su Shiqiang were still full of fear in their eyes. Su Shiqiang stood in front of Shen Chengao. From Shen Chengao's surprised face and the horrified look in his mother's eyes, it can be seen that Su Shiqiang must have explained the strange scene that just happened to everyone at the scene in detail, which also explains why Sulitsi and Shen Loxi were so nervous. "Dr. Zhang, are you okay?" Looking at Zhang Fengjai with a simple smile on his face, Shen Chengao asked the third identical question. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 109. Guanghe Huafu, in the Shen family villa. "Chairman, I'm fine, I'm fine." Faced with the same question from Sulitsi, Shen Loxi and Shen Chengao, Zhang Fengjai shrugged his shoulders in frustration and sat back on the soft sofa. "Dr. Zhang, where is Zhu Ziqiang?" Shen Chengao, who did not look relaxed at all because of Zhang Fengjai's reply that he was fine, continued to ask nervously. "Gone." In order not to leave Sulitsi with the impression of a cold killer, Zhang Fengjai could only use an answer full of personal imagination to respond to Shen Chengao's question just now. The kind-hearted Sulitsi, Shen Loxi and Shen's mother mistakenly thought that Zhang Fengjai just gave Zhu Ziqiang a severe lesson and drove him away. Shen Chengao, Su Shiqiang, and Wang Denmei had a look of shock in their eyes. Because of their different experiences and backgrounds, they were able to hear the true meaning of the word gone, which was complete death. "Butler Su, immediately notify the manager of Zhuyang restaurant and ask them to send a table of food as quickly as possible. Our family wants to thank Dr. Zhang for saving our lives. Since Zhu Ziqiang has completely left, he will not threaten Shen Loxi and the Shen family in the future." Shen Chengao, who was relieved, immediately asked Su Shiqiang to prepare a thank you banquet. Zhang Fengjai, who was just feeling hungry, showed a happy smile on his face. But at this moment, a big red-crowned rooster with flames all over its body flew into the living room with its wings flapping. "Xiao Zhang, how can a rooster fly?" Seeing the red-crowned rooster flapping its wings and flying in the living room like a bird, Shen's mother immediately turned her head and asked Zhang Fengjai with a surprised look in her eyes. At the same time, Sulitsi, Shen Loxi and Shen Chengao looked at Zhang Fengjai with doubts, and also looked at Zhang Fengjai with a surprised look on his face. Wang Denmei, who had witnessed the secret method of chicken blood announcing the dawn, showed a thoughtful look in her eyes. "Come here." Without answering Shen's mother's question, Zhang Fengjai immediately waved to the red-crowned rooster. When the red-crowned rooster flapped its wings and landed on his hand, it instantly turned into a talisman paper with runes drawn on it, and he looked at the back of the talisman paper. When he saw the word "N" written in a flamboyant style on the back of the talisman paper, Zhang Fengjai was completely relieved and reminded Shen Zhenghao. "Chairman, Zhu Qingjin is gone too." The look of doubt and surprise in his eyes was instantly replaced by surprise. Shen Zhenghao suddenly stood up and walked back and forth around the living room. After walking for 5 or 6 minutes, Shen Zhenghao apologized to Zhang Fengshi and went straight to the study on the first floor. "Yezi, don't take risks again when you encounter this kind of thing in the future." Shen Zhenghao's departure made Sulitzi, as a subordinate, feel much more relaxed, but when she thought of Su Shiqiang's description of the weird and evil methods used by Zhu Ziqiang, she really didn't want the man she loved to take risks again. Especially for a rival who has officially declared war on her. "Sister Litzi, I know." Zhang Fengjai held her jade hand and nodded in agreement, understanding the difficulties and sincerity of Sulitzi's persuasion. Her eyes moved from the clasped hands to Zhang Fengjai's face, and Shen Loxi's eyes showed a trace of envy and desire. Envy of Sulitzi's quick move. Longing for Zhang Fengjai's tender treatment. The thoughtful mother Shen soon noticed her daughter's abnormality. She felt a little distressed, and quickly held Shen Loxi's hand, and then whispered encouragement in her ear. 11 Mom believes that you will be able to successfully win Xiaozhang in the end. Mom, from elementary school to college, from joining the work to being promoted to general manager, as long as I, Shen Loxi, want to do it, there is nothing I can't do. As long as I want it, there is nothing I can't get. Faced with her mother's encouragement and support, Shen Loxi was moved and whispered in her mother's ear with confidence in her eyes. "I will not only make Zhang Fengjai fall in love with me, but also let him marry me with 8 sedan chairs." "Mom believes in you," Shen's mother nodded vigorously and gave spiritual support. When Shen Zhenghao came out of the desk, Su Shiqiang had already arranged a thank you banquet, so everyone went to the restaurant at the same time. From the first meeting at around 4 p.m. to the news of the death of the Zhu family father and son, what happened during this period was both tense and exciting, and frightening and scary. This caused everyone to consume a lot of energy, so after a simple meal, everyone left and returned to the room to rest. However, while everyone was having dinner, Shen Zhenghao also expressed the gratitude of the Shen family. The first thank you was a check of 10 million yuan, to thank Zhang Fengjai for removing the deadly soul-eating insect from Shen Loxi's mind. But Zhang Fengjai used the excuse of a 100-year-old wild ginseng to shirk it, and finally changed it to a cash gift of 1 million yuan. The second thank you was that the monthly salary of 120,000 yuan was directly increased to 500,000 yuan. This was also the salary reached after Zhang Fengjai tried his best to shirk it. Otherwise, according to Shen Zhenghao and Shen Loxi's intentions, the monthly salary would have to start at least 1 million yuan. The third thank you was that Sulitzi was promoted to the deputy general manager of the group, mainly responsible for the sales department, planning department, and business department, and became a real senior executive of the group in one fell swoop. In response, Zhang Fengjai took the initiative to agree on behalf of Sulitzi, and drank 3 glasses of white wine in a row to show his gratitude. Sulitzi provoked Shen Loxi with a demonstrative look, and then accepted the appointment very happily. Sitting cross-legged in front of the window-sill of the guest room, Zhang Fengjai stopped using his mind to guide the light of the moon, and said to the centipede with a serious look. "When I captured you alive in Lala village, I promised you in person. As long as you can do me a favor, I will not only let you leave safely, but also give you a chance to transform. Now, the second baptism of the light of the moon can not only make your physique undergo a complete transformation, but also open up part of your mind, which is also completely my original promise." At this point, he reached out and picked up the centipede and placed it on the window-sill, then waved his hand to signal. "Now, you can leave safely." Faced with Zhang Fengjai's promise of freedom, The centipede crawling on the windowsill not only did not leave immediately, but jumped directly onto him, ran into him along the cuffs, and then stuck tightly to his arm. In response, Zhang Fenjai's eyes flashed with joy, and he sat cross-legged again and began to meditate. However, this time he did not use the moon's light to practice his mind method, but to attract the relatively abundant spiritual energy in the villa area to improve his cultivation. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 110. Guanghe Huafu, in the Shen family villa. There is no time for cultivation. When there was a knock on the door, Zhang Fenjai, who was immersed in cultivation, slowly opened his eyes and took out his mobile phone to check. He found that it was already 9 o'clock in the morning without realizing it. He quickly got up and tidied up, opened the door and followed butler Su to the restaurant. After a simple breakfast, he followed Shen Loxi and Solitsi to work in Xintang building. Considering the sensation caused by the 300 million cash donation yesterday morning, Wang Denmei drove the car directly into the underground parking lot, and then took the elevator to the office area of Yongsheng Group. However, when he saw that Pan Switing's seat in the corner of the office area was empty, Zhang Fenjai stopped and couldn't help frowning. Because when she left the office area yesterday, Pan Switing was already facing the crisis of dark clouds covering her head, and she could be unlucky at any time because of bad luck. Shen Loxi, who knew that Zhang Fenjai often paid attention to Pan Switing, also stopped and asked the staff, "Where's Pan Switing?" To reply to the general manager, Pan Switing is not feeling well and has asked for a day off. A tall beauty quickly stood up and replied, "Give up now." After signaling the tall beauty to continue working, Shen Loxi teased Zhang Fenjai and walked into the office quickly. Faced with Shen Loxi's teasing, Zhang Fenjai quickly ignored the troubles Pan Switing was facing, shrugged depressedly, and quickened his pace to follow. I don't know how Shen Loxi and Solitsi reached an agreement. As long as Zhang Fenjai is working in the group, his activity area can only be the office of the general manager and the vice premier. He can neither contact the beauties in the group's office area nor go to other floors to hook up with other beauties. In desperation, he can only stay in the rest area specially prepared for him by Shen Loxi. Fortunately, equipped with the latest computer equipment, he didn't feel bored at all. 3 zombie movies performed by Uncle Ju made him spend a very fulfilling day. Although Shen Chengao prepared a luxurious room for him in the villa so that he could protect Shen Loxi to and from get off work every day, in order not to cause Solitsi's misunderstanding, he could only refuse outright. In this regard, Shen Loxi did not make too many requests or displeasure. Perhaps because she had just been promoted to the position of deputy general manager, or perhaps because there was some agreement between her and Shen Loxi that was not easy to tell, Shen Loxi returned to the bedroom to continue working after dinner. After returning to the apartment, without any intention of teasing or talking to each other. This also made Zhang Fenjai, who felt bored, put all his energy into meditation and practice. In the end, with the help of the century-old wild ginseng given by Shen Chengao, it took only less than 3 days for his cultivation to reach the peak of the 6th level of qi condensation, and he was only a step away from breaking through the 7th level of qi condensation. 3 days later, Solitsi started the sports car and greeted Zhang Fenjai, who was standing in front of the car window. "Ye Zi, get in the car and go home." "Sister Li Zi, I have something to go out today, you go home first." According to the agreement between him and Zhu Zhenjun, he had to accompany him to Dihao Entertainment City tonight, so facing Li Zi's call, Zhang Fenjai quickly bent over to explain. "Do you need me to accompany you?" Li Zi asked nervously. "No." Shaking his head, Zhang Fenjai waved goodbye and walked directly to a taxi parked on the side of the road. Seeing that Zhang Fenjai did not take Shen Loxi's luxury car, Li Zi breathed a sigh of relief and her nervous mood relaxed immediately. However, when she saw Shen Loxi's luxury slowly leaving the parking lot, her eyes immediately showed a look of unwillingness and regret. The single man and the single woman living in the same room was a good opportunity to take Zhang Fengjai. But Shen Loxi used her several mistakes at work as a handle to threaten her that she could only have a spiritual relationship with Zhang Fengjai within a year, and absolutely not have a relationship in bed. Otherwise, she would bring the mistakes she made at work to the board of directors. At that time, she would not only lose her position and job, but also face the possibility of imprisonment. It was because of Shen Loxi's threat that she agreed to such a humiliating agreement and resisted the urge to rush into Zhang Fengjai's room. "Loxi, you dead girl, just wait." Looking at the luxury car disappearing from sight, Sulitsi started the sports car and gritted her teeth and said to herself, "When I, Sulitsi, use the authority of the vice president to erase the losses caused by those mistakes at work, I will not only take Zhang Fengjai down as soon as possible, but also guarantee that I will be pregnant with his flesh and blood within a month. Then, let's see what you can do to me." After taking a taxi to Guanghe Huafu, Zhang Fengjai chose a relatively secluded place, jumped over the nearly 3-meter-high wall directly, and accelerated to Villa number 9 where Zhu Zhenjun was. When he crossed the fence and entered the yard of the villa, he unexpectedly found that Zhu Zhenjun was busy barbecuing in the yard alone. "Brother Zhu, aren't I going to accompany you to Dahao Entertainment City today?" Zhang Fengjai asked in confusion as he looked at the 4 boxes of 12-bottle beer and a pile of barbecue ingredients placed on the ground. "Brother, the time that the person agreed with me is 10 o'clock. It's not too late for us to leave at 10:30, so we have something to eat and drink first," Zhu Zhenjun explained with a smile while grilling 10 skewers of kidneys and 4 skewers of chicken wings. "Okay." He was addicted to the American Vampire series and had a whole day meeting with Shen Loxi, which made him sleepless and forgetful about lunch. So, facing the barbecue delicacies, he nodded in agreement and opened a bottle of beer to eat first. "Brother, the person who asked me to meet today is surnamed Chu, and his name is Zhongyao. He is a direct descendant of the Chu family, one of the 4 wealthy families in the provincial capital." Putting the freshly roasted kidneys and chicken wings in front of Zhang Fengjai, Zhu Zhenjun drank a bottle of beer in one go and introduced them solemnly. Zhu Zhenjun is also a direct descendant of the Zhu family, one of the 4 wealthy families in the provincial capital. In terms of identity and status, he is not inferior to Chu's Hongyu in the slightest. The contradiction and conflict between the two people came from a woman, a girlfriend who had been in love with Zhu Zhenjun for 3 years, and finally fell in love with Chu's Hongyu. Although Zhu Zhenjun and Chu's Hongyu were both from top wealthy families in provincial capitals, the different development directions of their families also gave them different levels of access. The development direction of the Chu family is mainly abroad, and the development direction of the Zhu family is mainly domestic. Compared with the mystery of the domestic Taoist sects where human beings and dragons never come to an end, those foreign clergy who are similar to Taoist monks really like to have contact with the top rich. After World War II, the powerful Taoists from the East signed a non-aggression agreement with the Western Holy See. However, with the reform and opening up of the country, as well as the seclusion and death of the top Taoist sects, many clergy from the Western Holy See began to appear frequently in the country.